Things are heating up at the NAG office, and no, I'm not talking about lens lab times in Assetto Corsa. We're busy with the next issue of NAG magazine, and this is going to be another fantastic issue. Of course, if you've not yet gotten your hands on the annual 2023 or the double cover winter edition, head over to shop.nag.co.za and grab your copy now. Look at that beauty. In this episode, I take you along to an awesome Mettlestate and Spotify event that I attended recently. It's all about the music and gaming, and there's no better match than that. Check it out later in the show. Then I also show you the new Elder Scrolls game, this time for mobile, and if you loved Fallout Shelter, this game is for you. It's all about building and managing castles. I also chat to Neo from TheOverclocker magazine about the Intel 13th and 14th gen issues that has affected some users. We understand what the problem is, and we also look at how we can resolve it. But before we get into all of that, I want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors, Catz. Thank you for all your support and helping us run this amazing competition we have on at the moment. We have two amazing bundles of Catz products, so head over to nag.co.za/winter edition to enter now. As always, remember to keep an eye out for the Badger. I've been hiding him in random episodes, so see if you can spot him somewhere in this edit. How good is your video game knowledge? Think you know your stuff? Then see if you can answer the one question in this week's Quest for Knowledge. In 2020, Sony first released a game that essentially is an exhibition of PlayStation's 30-year history. What is the name of that game? But first, let's chat to Neo from TheOverclocker magazine about Intel's 13th and 14th gen issues. Now, if you were one of the unlucky few, you may have experienced some issues with your 13th and 14th gen, but Neo, the man who knows a bit more than we do, is here to tell us more about it. Neo, how are you doing?
I'm good, and you?
Good, man. Good. Nice to see you again. It's been a while. Good to talk about It's good to talk about some tech topics again. Obviously, always exciting news coming out of the CPU and GPU markets. But this time, Intel 13th and 14th gen, there were some issues with it. We didn't experience any of it in our machines, which is interesting. But can you tell us a little bit more about what happened? What transpired to this whole Intel 13th, 14th gen scenario?
Well, according to some users, they were experiencing crashes and just random shader compilation, things like that in a lot of games. And as you know, recently, a lot of games do shader compilation before you can actually play the game, right?
Yeah.
So what was happening is that during that process, a lot of people were seeing a lot of crashes. And the only way to alleviate those crashes, they were told to downclock their computer or something, right? To remove the overclock and so forth. So that's where this thing started to go a bit viral, and other people were like, I'm actually experiencing the same thing. Shader compilation issues, crashes, and so forth. And then obviously it led to the investigation by, I think it was first the tech media actually, who picked it up, believe it or not. And then they made a song and dance about it, and then obviously it eventually got to the motherboard vendors who first tried to sort it out with their own BIOS updates and tuning and so forth. And then it was given over to Intel, of course, and then Intel officially said that they are investigating, but they suspect it might be voltage related.
Which is why overclockers and kind of high-end users would experience that more than just your average consumer, because these are the guys that would tinker with those settings. So voltages, obviously, was it just over voltages being sent to the CPU cores that caused this, or is it like a physical hardware issue?
So I don't know if you remember, Gamers Nexus did a whole deep dive or sort of series into what might be causing the issues. And Gamers Nexus came up with a hypothesis that it might actually be a manufacturing bug. However, Intel did say, yes, they are right in saying that there was a manufacturing issue, right? However, they had sorted this out long before these hit retail. So it's not the same issue. However, it is a possible issue to have when you are manufacturing CPUs. What they narrowed it down to is voltages. So you would get voltage spikes. And a lot of this seems to be because motherboard vendors were actually allowing boards to draw a whole lot of power instantaneously. at random times and so forth. So
things are getting crazy out there.
Exactly. So when people were measuring actual voltages, sometimes they would see spikes of 1.5, 1.6 volts, which is obviously way too high for CPUs that are normally rather operating at about 1.3 volts, 1.4. And that was causing issues, of course. So Intel essentially told all the board vendors that they need to have a profile, which is Intel default settings. So that means no nonsense, no enhancing, no extra voltage, no performance tuning, nothing. Just configure the system as Intel intended in the factory. So you will see that a lot of motherboards came out with updates that actually allowed that very setting to limit voltages and so forth and power draw and whatnot.
So, I mean, as somebody that overclocks and really gets deep down to the hardware, how do you feel about this? I mean, obviously, that you can get the CPUs to work, which is fine. But as somebody who likes to overclock, do you think this affects those users? I mean, would they want this? Would they want a voltage down their CPUs necessarily?
Not really, because believe it or not, the people who actually experience these issues are probably less than 1% of the people who bought the CPUs. Right? I personally myself didn't experience any of these issues, and I've gone through several CPUs throughout the entire lifetime of 13th gen and 14th gen. Not once did I have an issue. I don't have instability right now. So I can't speak to the people who do have those instabilities. However, I would say if you're not sure of what you're doing, rather don't overclock. That's pretty much all I can do. But for people who are enthusiasts and so forth, this is never going to stop them, especially if their particular CPU is not broken. They don't care, right? They're like, no, mine is fine. And if anything should happen, I'll just take it to Intel to replace. That's pretty much it.
Yeah,
so it's the same story.
They did extend their warranty from 2 to 5 years to obviously compensate for this, which I think is great. But I think if you start overclocking your voltages, you do tend to void your warranty in any case, right?
Yes.
We'll get to that topic in another day. Have we seen anything else like this in recent memory? Any other issues with CPUs that caused this relatively broad issue?
Not really. I mean, the source of this issue is actually wasn't the processors failing. It's actually that there was never any clear guidance from Intel or the board vendors on what is actually default for the CPU. That was never well defined. Intel till today continues to say they have two power limits, right? A sustained power limit, which is for longer periods. That's the one you're familiar with, 125 watts. And there's a short burst power limit, which is 253 watts. But in Intel's own guidance to media and so forth, they say you should set PL1 to PL2, which is a 250 watts. So what is the point of the first one, right? So it's that sort of thing that the board vendors eventually said, I mean, I'm going to do even more. I'm going to allow 300, 4,000 watts, right, and all of that. So you might find this issue was prevalent or was present long before, but we never picked it up because we were just so used to these huge power draws and high voltages and so forth until now, of course.
That's a very good definition of what the issue is and where it came from. So, I mean, yeah, for the most of us, we probably won't even come across it. And even if you do overclock, unless you hit those top-end spikes, you're probably not going to see this issue. What Intel machine are you playing with at the moment? What is the latest, hottest CPU that you've been testing recently?
Ones that I can't speak about publicly, but one that definitely, 14th gen, of course.
Yes,
that's obviously, I'm still in love with 14th gen, despite all the issues. I know everybody doesn't like it now, but I know in some countries you can buy 14th gen for so cheap now because people are trying to return them. And that's when other people are getting a bargain. Like I can pick up a 14900K for the price of a 13700. Why not?
And I guess people are also anticipating the next launch coming up towards the end of the year.
That's
right. Arrow Lake, right?
Arrow Lake.
Yeah. So
next month. Yeah.
It's a bit of a bad timing all around, I think, if you are Intel support right now. But for the consumer, you do have a lot of choice because both the 13th and the 14th gen, by all accounts, benchmarks, and obviously the articles that I've read on the Overclocker still indicates that these are the top CPUs to get. Yeah, I mean it's
definitely.
I mean, I'm still running a 12th gen and I've got no complaints. So
yeah, so yeah, I think you're perfectly good. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And they're still good and still DDR5 and it still get great boards for it. It's still a good time to actually use 14th gen personally. That's a personal opinion. And I'll continue to use 14th gen on one of my systems even though the newer system is around. Right.
So what is the beefiest machine you're running there at the Overclocker office?
It's still Threadripper, but that's not really usable in an everyday sense. I mean,
no, you can't really use all those threads.
No, just an idle, it draws like 120 watts. I can't justify that. That's too much. That's when the other systems are under load. So it's not something you could use. However, yeah, it's mostly 14th gen and Air Lake and some AMD stuff, AM5 of course. Just the things that are mainstream essentially for everybody.
And then we'll be chatting about the next gen Intels very, very soon. I can't wait to get my hands on those CPUs as well.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Let's compare some notes because I think that is the one a lot of people are looking forward to. And also, this one's got some stuff to show us. So
point to prove, yes. Yes.
Exactly.
Definitely.
But yeah, thank you, Noah. As always, for anybody who wants to check you out, where can they reach you?
Oh, they can find me at TheOverclocker. That's on Twitter, or X now, since it's not on Twitter. I'm old school like that. You can find me on TikTok at TheOverclocker Magazine, and mostly on YouTube, TheOverclocker.
If you want to see any of the tech that you'll likely not be able to afford, that is the channel to go check out. But also very informative. In light of sites like Anantech closing down, I mean, there's very few people on the web that really does technical breakdown. So, Neo, appreciate your work as always, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. No, thank you, guys. Thank you. Have a good one.
So, I recently attended a Spotify event managed by Mettlestate, which included great music, awesome snacks, and of course, video games.
Mettlestate putting on another stellar event. Tell us a little bit more about what you got to do with Spotify, because that's a pretty cool collaboration.
Yeah, I mean, I always like to try and work with brands that aren't always in the space of gaming, and Spotify, from a gamer's perspective, is in the space of gaming, right? We listen to music from Spotify, we're engaging with Spotify. But Spotify came to us and they said they wanted to get into the space. They wanted to work with gamers. So we said, well, what happens if we put a playlist together where gamers can add to that playlist, and we create this event that's powered by music? And that's how we ended up with this collaboration with Spotify. At the end of the day, we want to see this become something really massive in the space of gaming for Spotify and the gaming space.
Now, final question, I know you're a busy man. What is your song that you like to jam when you're playing computer games?
Sure, I must be honest, I'm going through a bit of a Shabuzi phase at the moment. So anything Shabuzi. When I came across him, I was like, country rap, I can do this.
Okay, we're going to have to investigate. I've never even heard. I thought you were making
You've never heard of Shabuzi. What the hell, man?
Shabuzi. What?
Yeah, I have. I've added him to the playlist.
All right, Barry, thank you so much. And yeah, best of luck for the rest of the day.
Bad. Thanks.
If you want to listen to the official Powered by Music playlist, you can check it out here. Or if you're watching this on a bigger screen, here is the QR code. Len, see if you can grab this from the couch. We also have our own official NAG gaming playlist featuring some of our own favorite songs, which you can check out here or here. Bethesda launched the Elder Scrolls Castles for iOS and Android this week, and if you're a fan of Fallout Shelter, then this game is for you. In this game, you play as the Hand of the King, and it's your responsibility to manage the castle. Each day in the real world is a year in the game, and it's your job to make the right decisions as you expand the empire. The game's castle building mechanic offers quite a lot of flexibility and customization. You can easily change the castle layout and decorate it to your liking, with props that all affect the gameplay. Ensuring your subjects are happy and keeping up morale is also a big part of the job, and you may have to play Cupid to ensure there's an heir to the throne. You'll eventually have to venture outside the castle walls. Here you will send your subjects on quests and they will combat familiar Elder Scroll creatures. As you unlock new materials in your quests, you can craft new weapons for your combats to level up existing gear. The game also features a roguelite mode in which you face waves of enemies with increasing difficulty. You can get the Elder Scroll castles for free on iOS and Android, but there are microtransactions in the form of gems and items you can buy. Yes, these prices are quite expensive for a mobile game, and it remains to be seen if the microtransactions will limit gameplay over the long run. My advice, as always, is to be very careful with spending money on microtransactions. And that's it for episode 24 of The NAG Show. Until the next episode, remember to check out all our channels across YouTube, Facebook, X and Instagram. Don't forget to check out the NAG shop as well at shop.nag.co.za for the latest NAG magazine. And if you want to reach out, you can reach us at hey@nag.co.za. Until the next episode, NAG out.